Ladies and gentlemen, there's a certain kind of woman that the world doesn't always understand. She walks into the room. She doesn't need to announce herself. Her presence speaks louder than any introduction. She's not rude. She's not arrogant, but she is whole. She is not desperate. She is not begging for validation, and she is not waiting for permission to breathe. See, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone is a state, but being lonely is a condition of the soul. And a woman who has learned to be alone without being lonely has unlocked a secret most never discover. These are women who have built their own table instead of waiting for an invitation to someone else's. They have learned that their joy is not dependent on whether someone chooses them, because they already chose themselves. They know that life is too precious to hand the pen of their destiny to someone else. And let me tell you something. When a woman reaches this point, she becomes powerful. She becomes dangerous, not to good men, but to every manipulator, every deceiver, every voice that tries to shrink her down to fit in a box she's outgrown. This kind of woman knows her worth without needing it stamped with approval. She can love deeply, but she doesn't lose herself in the process. She can support, but she doesn't disappear. She can serve, but she will not be enslaved. Some people will misunderstand her. They'll call her cold when in reality she's just careful. They'll call her proud. Really, she's just protecting the peace she fought to have. They'll call her intimidating when in truth she's just not easily manipulated. The truth is, she doesn't reject love, she just refuses to settle for counterfeit. She doesn't avoid men. She just won't partner with boys trapped in grown-up bodies. She's not trying to prove she's better than anyone. She's just trying to live in the fullness of who God called her to be. To every woman hearing this, it is not weakness to desire companionship, but it is weakness to depend on it for your identity. A healthy woman can have a man by her side, but never beneath her feet, never over her head, and never in place of the God who sustains her. Because the truth is, when you learn that your value comes from God, not from the attention of another person, you stop chasing love and start attracting it. You stop begging for crumbs and start expecting the feast you deserve. You stop asking, will someone love me? And you start declaring, I am already loved. So here's the truth about women who don't need a man. They can choose one from a place of strength, not desperation. When they do, the relationship isn't about filling a void. It's about building a vision. One of the most misunderstood truths about a strong, self-sufficient woman is this: her independence is not arrogance. The world has a way of twisting strength into something ugly because it doesn't always know how to handle it. When a woman knows who she is, she knows what she carries. When she understands her value, she moves differently. And for some people, that's uncomfortable. Independence is not the absence of love. It's the absence of dependency on unhealthy love. It's not an ego trip. It's a freedom trip. It's not a rejection of others. It's a refusal to reject yourself. A truly independent woman doesn't carry herself with pride that says, I'm better than you. She carries herself with dignity that says, I respect me too much to let anything or anyone diminish me. The problem is, people who benefit from your weakness will always mislabel your strength. They'll say you're arrogant because you no longer accept what you used to tolerate. They'll say you've changed when you've simply grown. They'll say you've got an attitude when you've simply raised your standards. Independence will always expose the insecurities of those who rely on your compliance. Let's make this plain. Independence is not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about learning how to stand when no one else shows up. It's about knowing that your peace, your joy, your sanity, and your purpose are too valuable to be placed in the fragile hands of other people. It's the ability to say, I appreciate your presence, but I can still function without it. An independent woman can still be tender. She can still love, serve, and support. In fact, her love is often deeper because it's not driven by fear of abandonment. She doesn't cling because she's desperate. She connects because she chooses to. She's not afraid to be alone because she knows her worth isn't determined by who's in the room with her. Arrogance, on the other hand, is built on insecurity. Arrogance needs to prove something. It's loud, it's boastful, it's showy. It constantly seeks validation and thrives on comparison. True independence is the opposite. It's quiet confidence. It doesn't need to announce itself because it's secure within itself. It doesn't need applause because it already knows its value. Here's the truth. A woman who's independent has usually been through enough storms to know she can't afford to lean too heavily on anyone else's boat. She's weathered the betrayals, survived the heartbreaks, faced the disappointments, and realized that at the end of the day, she has to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. That's not arrogance, that's wisdom. Sometimes independence is born from necessity. Maybe she was left to fend for herself. Maybe she had to raise children without support. Maybe she had dreams no one believed in, so she had to fight for them alone. Those seasons taught her resilience, not superiority. She learned that being self-sufficient is not a luxury, it's a survival skill. Now, here's where the misunderstanding comes in. When you've spent years building yourself up, protecting your heart, learning how to survive, people will accuse you of thinking you're too good for others. But what they fail to understand is that you're not trying to be too good. You're simply trying to remain whole. You've fought too hard for your peace to let anyone dismantle it. Independence is not arrogance because it still leaves room for partnership. It still leaves room for community. It still leaves room for love. It simply means you don't enter those spaces from a place of neediness. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone to complement you. You're not searching for a savior. You already have one in God. Some will say, well, if you're so independent, you don't need anybody. That's not the point. Needing no one is isolation. Valuing everyone without depending on them for your worth, that's independence. There's a big difference. Independent women can still appreciate help, accept advice, and enjoy companionship. They just don't collapse without it. Think about it. When you see a woman who is calm in the storm, unshaken by opinions, unbothered by rejection, that's not arrogance, that's mastery over her own emotions. It's the ability to manage herself before trying to manage a relationship. It's refusing to let temporary people cause permanent damage. Here's the beautiful thing. True independence doesn't make a woman hard, it makes her whole. When she gives love, it's not from a place of emptiness. When she builds, it's not out of desperation. When she commits, it's not out of fear of being alone. Her independence makes her love pure because it's a love that isn't tangled up in self-loss. To the women who walk in this kind of independence, don't you dare let anyone shame you for the strength you've worked for. Don't let their insecurity rewrite your story. You know where you've been. You know the nights you cried alone. You know the prayers you prayed. You know the work you put in. You didn't wake up strong. You became strong. And to those who misunderstand, hear this clearly. Independence is not arrogance. It's self-respect. It's emotional maturity. It's the product of trials, not the fruit of pride. It's what happens when a woman refuses to let her past dictate her future. It's what happens when she decides that her identity will never be held hostage by anyone's approval. So let the independent woman walk boldly. Let her dream without asking for permission. Let her set her standards high without apology. Because the truth is, when a woman knows who she is in God, she becomes unshakable. And unshakable women change the world, not because they stand above others, but because they stand secure within themselves. We live in a world that has confused the concepts of being alone and being lonely. People throw those words around like they're interchangeable. They couldn't be more different. Being alone is simply a state of physical separation from others. Being lonely is an emptiness of the soul. One is an external condition, the other is an internal cry. And if you don't know the difference, spend your whole life chasing people so you don't have to sit with yourself. Let me tell you, there is nothing wrong with being alone. In fact, some of the most powerful seasons in your life will be the ones where God pulls you away from the noise, away from the crowd, away from the constant chatter of opinions. Alone time can be the birthing room for vision, the training ground for strength. the place where clarity finally has the space to speak. Loneliness, however, is a whole different thing. Loneliness isn't about the absence of people, it's about the absence of connection. You can be surrounded by 100 faces, sitting at a table full of laughter, and still feel lonely. You can be in a marriage, in a family, in a church, in a friend group, and still feel like nobody sees you. Loneliness is not about proximity, it's about intimacy. And here's the danger. If you can't distinguish between being alone and being lonely, you'll keep running from the very seasons meant to heal you. You'll treat solitude like a punishment instead of a privilege. You'll see quiet as a void instead of a gift. You'll cling to toxic company just to avoid the silence that's meant to set you free. Being alone gives you room to think, to breathe, to recalibrate. It's in the alone place that you hear your own thoughts without them being drowned out by other people's voices. It's in the alone place that you confront the truths you've been running from. It's in the alone place that you finally face the brokenness you've been covering up with business. Loneliness, though, is often a result of disconnection from yourself and from God. You can't fix loneliness just by adding more people. You fix loneliness by deepening connection to your own heart, to your Creator, to the things that truly matter. See, loneliness isn't the absence of bodies, it's the absence of belonging. And until you belong to yourself, until you feel at home in your own soul, you will always feel lonely, no matter where you are or who you're with. That's why some people stay in unhealthy relationships. They're not afraid of being alone. They're not afraid of being lonely. They think having someone, anyone, is better than having no one. But the truth is, being alone with peace is better than being with someone and feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved. When you learn the difference, you stop making decisions out of desperation. You stop settling for counterfeit companionship. You stop letting people rent space in your life who don't invest in your growth. You begin to see that alone doesn't mean abandoned, and solitude doesn't mean forgotten. There's a beauty in aloneness that loneliness will never give you. Being alone can sharpen your focus, strengthen your faith, and stretch your capacity. It's in the alone place where you discover that you are enough. It's where you stop trying to fill your life with distractions and start filling it with purpose. It's where you realize that your value doesn't rise or fall based on who decides to stay. Some of you have been so afraid of being alone that you've never given yourself the chance to meet you. You've never discovered your own voice because you've always been echoing someone else's. You've never learned what you love because you've been so busy loving what others told you to love. You've never found your strength because you've always leaned on somebody else's. Being alone is not the same as being lonely, because being alone can be empowering, it can be restorative, it can be liberating. Loneliness drains you, solitude fills you. Loneliness leaves you feeling empty, solitude leaves you feeling whole. Loneliness makes you chase, solitude makes you attract. Here's the truth. When you master the art of being alone, you become harder to manipulate. You stop falling for emotional blackmail. You stop tolerating people who only show up when they need something. You stop feeling pressured to compromise your values just to keep someone close. You learn that companionship is a blessing, not a lifeline. The enemy of your soul would love for you to think that being alone is proof that you are unloved, unworthy, or unimportant. But the truth is, some of your greatest growth will happen in isolation. Ask anyone who's ever built something meaningful. There's a season where you have to disappear to develop. You have to pull away to prepare. You have to step back to step up. Being alone allows you to hear the whisper of God more clearly. In the stillness, you begin to recognize His voice above the noise. In the quiet, you realize He's been speaking all along. You just couldn't hear Him over the chaos. You begin to see yourself the way He sees you, loved, valuable, chosen. And here's the powerful part. When you are comfortable being alone, you can walk into any relationship without fear of losing yourself. You can love freely without clutching tightly. You can serve without resentment. You can give without expecting that person to be your entire source of joy. Loneliness makes you needy. Solitude makes you whole. Loneliness keeps you begging. Solitude teaches you how to build. Loneliness leaves you vulnerable to the wrong people. Solitude prepares you for the right ones. So stop running from the seasons where God sets you apart. Stop calling solitude a curse when it's really a classroom. Stop mistaking the absence of people for the absence of purpose. Learn how to sit with yourself. Learn how to enjoy your own company. Learn how to hear your own voice again. Because the truth is, being alone can be the most free and healing, life-changing season you will ever know. And once you've tasted the peace that comes from it, you'll never trade it for the counterfeit comfort of unhealthy company again. And for others is set boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates that control what comes in and what goes out. They are not a sign of weakness. They are proof of wisdom. They are not selfish. They are stewardship. When you understand your worth, you stop letting anyone and anything handle you carelessly. The truth is, boundaries are not about keeping love away. They're about keeping the wrong kind of love from taking root. They are not about rejecting people. They're about rejecting treatment that dishonors your value. If you have no boundaries, you're like an open field with no fence. Anybody can walk through, trample over what's precious, and leave you to clean up the mess. Boundaries say, I know who I am, I know what I carry, and I refuse to let just anything or anyone come in and damage it. When you protect your worth, you protect your peace, your time, your energy, and your calling. Without boundaries, you'll find yourself drained, distracted, and defeated because you've let too many people take from you without giving anything back. Some people think boundaries are unkind. They'll tell you you're being too harsh, too distant, too protective. But in reality, people who complain about your boundaries are often the ones who benefited most from you not having any. They liked you better when you were accessible at all times, even at the expense of your own well-being. They liked you better when you said yes to everything, even when it broke you. Boundaries are not for keeping people in line. They're for keeping you aligned. Aligned with your values. Aligned with your purpose. Aligned with the standards that God has set for your life. Without boundaries, your life will be shaped by whoever shouts the loudest, demands the most, manipulates the best. When you know your worth, you stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop feeling guilty for protecting what you've worked so hard to build. You stop explaining why you won't tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or dishonesty. A person who truly values you will never be offended by your boundaries. They will respect them because they respect you. Think of it like this. Precious things are always protected. Diamonds are locked away in vaults. Masterpieces are displayed behind glass. Even your phone has a passcode. If we go to such lengths to protect material things, how much more should we protect our spirit, our mind, our heart? Your worth is far greater than any possession, so it deserves far greater protection. Without boundaries, you'll find yourself in relationships that constantly take but never give. You'll find yourself saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You'll end up resentful, bitter, and exhausted. Not because you didn't love, because you didn't love yourself enough to say, this is the line, and it will not be crossed. Boundaries protect your time. Not everyone deserves access to your hours, your energy, your focus. If you give away your time to everyone who asks for it, you'll have nothing left for what really matters. Boundaries protect your mind. Not every conversation is worth engaging in, and not every argument deserves a response. Boundaries protect your emotions. You don't have to be a sponge for other people's negativity, anger, or drama. Some will test your boundaries. They'll push against them, hoping you'll bend. But every time you reinforce them, you teach people how to treat you. Every time you stand firm, you remind yourself, I am worth protecting. Here's the truth. Boundaries are not built overnight. They often come after you've been hurt, drained, or taken advantage of one too many times. They are forged in the fire of experience. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you felt used, those were the lessons that taught you to guard your worth more carefully. Here's something important. Boundaries also protect relationships. They create clarity. They define expectations. They remove guesswork. Without them, relationships become messy, codependent, and full of unspoken resentment. With them, love can flourish because it's grounded in mutual respect. Some people think that setting boundaries means you don't care. In reality, it means you care enough to create a healthy environment for love to grow. It means you want your yes to be genuine and your no to be respected. It means you want to show up fully, but not at the expense of your peace. When you live without boundaries, you leave yourself open to being controlled. You become a puppet to other people's desires, fears, and demands. When you set boundaries, you reclaim your life. You decide what gets your attention, what gets your energy, and what gets your heart. Boundaries don't just protect your worth, they reveal it. They say to the world, I am valuable enough to guard, and they send a message to you that you are worth the effort it takes to stand firm. Some of you need to hear this. It is not your job to be accessible to everyone all the time. It is not your job to fix every problem, to meet every need, to answer every call. You are not being unloving by saying, I can't right now. You are not being prideful by saying, this is my limit. You are not being selfish by saying, I need space. Protecting your worth doesn't mean you build a wall so high that no one can reach you. It means you build a gate that you control. You decide who comes in. You decide when they come in. You decide how far they can go. And you decide when it's time for them to leave. Because the truth is, you can't live a life of peace without boundaries. You can't fulfill your calling if you're constantly drained by chaos. You can't hear God's voice if your life is overrun with the noise of people who don't value you. And you can't truly love others if you're running on empty because you've given everything away without replenishing yourself. Boundaries are not about fear. They're about freedom. Freedom to live without being manipulated. Freedom to love without being depleted. Freedom to give without being taken for granted. Freedom to be fully you without being swallowed by someone else's demands. So stand firm. Draw your lines. Guard your heart. Protect your time. Respect your energy, not because you're cold, but because you're wise. Not because you don't care, because you do. And you've learned that the best way to protect love, peace, and purpose is to protect the vessel that carries them. One of the greatest dangers to your destiny is making decisions out of desperation instead of discernment. Desperation rushes you. Discernment slows you down. Desperation clouds your judgment. Discernment clears your vision. Desperation says, I can't afford to wait. Discernment says, if it's from God, it will still be there when I'm ready. Desperation is dangerous because it puts you in a position to accept less than you deserve. It whispers lies like, something is better than nothing, or if you don't grab this now, never get another chance. But discernment reminds you that not everything that's available is beneficial, and not every open door was opened by God. Some doors are traps dressed like opportunities. When you operate in desperation, you will ignore red flags, excuse bad behavior, overlook obvious warning signs, because your fear of missing out outweighs your commitment to your own worth. But when you walk in discernment, you weigh every decision against wisdom, peace, and alignment with God's will. You don't just ask, is it good? You ask, is it God? Desperation is reactive. Discernment is intentional. Desperation has you jumping at the first sign of attention, the first job offer, first friendship, the first relationship that comes along. It convinces you that timing doesn't matter and preparation isn't necessary. But discernment understands that timing is everything. It knows that the wrong thing at the wrong time can delay or even derail the right thing at the right time. Here's the truth. People can smell desperation. They can sense when you're hungry for approval, attention, or validation. And the wrong kind of people will use that against you. They will offer you just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to truly satisfy you. Desperation makes you easy to manipulate. Discernment makes you impossible to deceive. Discernment isn't just a spiritual gift, it's a survival skill. It's the ability to see beyond the surface, to hear what isn't being said, to sense the spirit behind the smile. It's knowing that not all compliments are sincere and not all promises are trustworthy. It's learning to pause, pray, and evaluate before you commit. Desperation thrives in emptiness. When you don't know your value, you will settle for anything that makes you feel wanted for a moment. That's why building your identity in God is so important. Because when you know you are loved, chosen, and purposed by Him, you won't be so quick to chase counterfeit affection or temporary opportunities. Discernment thrives in wholeness. When you are secure, you can wait. You can turn down good things because you're holding out for the God thing. You can walk away from situations that look promising but don't feel right in your spirit. You can say no without guilt and yes without fear. Some of the worst decisions we make come from the mindset, I can't let this pass me by. But discernment asks, will this cost me more than it's worth? Desperation focuses only on what you can gain right now. Discernment considers what you might lose in the long run. Think about it. How many people have rushed into relationships because they were tired of being alone, only to end up in heartbreak that could have been avoided if they'd slowed down? How many people have jumped into business deals without reading the fine print, only to end up bound by contracts they can't get out of? How many people have accepted offers that looked like blessings but were actually bait? Desperation makes you chase what's in front of you. Discernment makes you seek what's meant for you. Desperation says, I'll take what I can get. Discernment says, I'll wait for what God has for me. Desperation says, I can't afford to be picky. Discernment says, I can't afford to be careless. You see, discernment requires trust that God knows what you need when you need it and how to bring it to you. It requires the discipline to be still when everything in you wants to run ahead. It requires the courage to let go of what looks good but isn't right. Here's something important. Discernment isn't just about avoiding bad choices. It's about recognizing the right ones. Sometimes God sends opportunities that don't look like much on the surface, but they're exactly what you need. Without discernment, you'll miss them because they don't match your expectations. Desperation will have you measuring everything by appearance. How much money it offers, attractive they look, how quickly it can happen. Discernment measures by purpose. Does it align with your values, your calling, and your peace? Desperation is a trap of fear. Discernment is a fruit of faith. Fear says, what if it never happens? Faith says, if it's for me. Fear says, I can't wait. Faith says, I'll wait as long as it takes if it means avoiding a lifetime of regret. Some of you have been living in cycles of disappointment because you keep making desperate decisions. You keep grabbing what's in reach instead of waiting for what's right. You keep settling for temporary satisfaction that leaves you emptier than before. God is calling you to shift from desperation to discernment, to stop moving out of fear and start moving out of faith. This shift won't happen overnight. It takes practice. It takes learning to recognize the restlessness of desperation and replace it with the stillness of discernment. It takes saying, let me pray about it, instead of, where do I sign? It takes resisting the urge to prove yourself by saying yes to everything and instead proving your maturity by knowing when to say no. Discernment over desperation will save you from unnecessary pain. It will keep you from being tied to people you were never meant to be connected to. It will keep you from making commitments you can't sustain. It will keep you from chasing on opportunities that look shiny but are actually toxic. Because here's the truth. The enemy doesn't just attack you with obvious danger. He tempts you with almost right opportunities. The wrong relationship that feels like love. The wrong job that feels like promotion. The wrong friendship that feels like loyalty. Only discernment can reveal what desperation hides. So choose discernment, slow down, ask questions, test the fruit, pray for clarity. Trust that if something is truly meant for you, it will not require you to compromise your values, abandon your peace, or ignore your intuition to keep it. Desperation will tell you that time is running out, but discernment will remind you that God is never late. Desperation will convince you that you're missing your chance, but discernment will tell you that no one can take what God has reserved for you. When you choose discernment over desperation, you're not just making better choices, you're building a better life. You're saying, I refuse to be led by fear. I refuse to be controlled by scarcity. I refuse to trade my future for instant gratification. One of the most dangerous lies you can ever believe is that your identity comes from people, from what they think, what they say, or how they treat you. The truth is your identity was settled before you ever took your first breath. Before anyone could label you, God had already named you. Before anyone could reject you, God had already chosen you. Before anyone could define you, God had already designed you. If you allow people to define you, you will also allow them to destroy you, because the same hands that lift you up today can push you down tomorrow. The same mouths that praise you when you're useful can curse you when you no longer serve their agenda. If your identity is built on human approval, always be unstable, shifting with moods, opinions, and seasons. But when your identity is rooted in God, it is unshakable. People can misunderstand you, misrepresent you, even mistreat you, but they cannot redefine you. Why? Because they didn't make you. They didn't give you your gifts. They didn't write your destiny. They don't hold your future. The problem is, from the time we're young, the world tries to tell us who we are. Parents, teachers, friends, culture, media, everyone has an opinion. And if we're not careful, we'll spend our lives performing for acceptance, chasing validation, and reshaping ourselves to fit into boxes we were never meant to enter. Some of you have been carrying labels for years that God never gave you. Somebody called you too much, so you shrank yourself. Somebody called you not enough, so you've been overcompensating. Somebody said you'd never succeed, so you've been hustling not for purpose, but for proof. But hear me, the opinion of people is not your origin story. Your Creator's word is. When you know your identity is God-given, you stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, am I pleasing Him? You stop obsessing over your reputation and start focusing on your character. You stop chasing roles, titles, and applause, because you understand that your worth doesn't increase with achievement or decrease with failure. People will try to name you based on your past, names you based on your future. People will define you by your mistakes. God defines you by His mercy. People will measure you by what you've done. God measures you by what He's placed inside you. When your identity is God-given, criticism doesn't crush you and compliments don't control you. You appreciate encouragement, but you don't need it to function. You can receive correction without collapsing because your worth is not on trial. This is why the enemy works so hard to attack your identity. He knows that if he can convince you to see yourself through a distorted lens, you will live beneath your calling. If he can make you think you're unworthy, you'll settle for less. If he can make you think you're powerless, you'll stop fighting. If he can make you think you're forgotten, you'll quit too soon. Your identity in God is not based on how strong you feel, how perfect your track record is, or how many people cheer for you. It is based on the unchanging truth of His word. That means on your best day, you are His. On your worst day, you are still His. When you're winning, you're His. When you're failing, you're still His. Here's the beauty. When you embrace your God-given identity, you are free from comparison, because you understand that no one can take your place in His plan. Free from people pleasing, because you know that His well done matters more than their applause. Free from insecurity, because you understand that your value was set at the cross and cannot be bargained down. Think about Jesus when He was baptized. Before He performed a single miracle, the Father spoke from heaven and said, "This is my beloved Son, whom I am well pleased." His identity was affirmed before He ever did anything public. That's how God works. He defines you before you perform, so that your performance never defines you. If you let people determine your worth, you will live in constant fear of losing it. If you let God define your worth, you can stand confident even when the world tries to strip it away. That's why the approval of God is the anchor you need, because His approval doesn't fluctuate with trends, seasons, or opinions. Your identity in God means you are loved without condition, accepted without audition, and valued without transaction. You don't have to earn it. You just have to receive it. That doesn't mean you won't grow, change, or mature. It means you grow from a place of security, not from a place of striving. Some of you have been waiting for someone to tell you you're enough. Let me tell you plainly. You were enough when God made you. You were enough before they left you. You were enough before they doubted you. You were enough before life tried to break you. You will still be enough long after their opinion has faded. This is why it's dangerous to hand your identity over to people. If you live by their compliments, you will die by their criticism. If you rise by their applause, you will fall by their silence. If your worth depends on their presence, you will collapse at their absence. But when you stand in your God-given identity, you can survive rejection without bitterness, walk through betrayal without losing yourself, and endure misunderstanding without giving up. You can bless those who curse you, love those who hurt you, keep moving forward even when it feels like no one believes in you. Because you know He believes in you. God-given identity also comes with God-given purpose. You were not put on this earth to be a carbon copy of anyone else. You were created with a unique combination of gifts, passions, and experiences that no one else can duplicate. That means your assignment is yours alone, and you don't need anyone's permission to walk in it. So here's the challenge. Stop looking in the mirror of people's opinions and start looking in the mirror of God's Word. Stop letting temporary voices tell you who you are, and start listening to the eternal voice that spoke you into existence. Stop trading your birthright for acceptance that won't last. Your identity is God-given. It cannot be taken by people. It cannot be destroyed by failure. It cannot be canceled by rejection. It is sealed by His love, anchored in His truth, and secured by His promise. And when you live from that identity, you become unshakable. You walk differently. You talk differently. You choose differently. Because you're no longer trying to become someone. You're simply living as the someone God already made you to be. If you'd like, now finish the series with partnership is a choice, not a necessity. So you'll have the complete, consistent set in the same style. One will tie the message together powerfully, but it is not a lifeline. Companionship can be beautiful, but it is not a requirement for your wholeness. Partnership is a choice, not a necessity. And until you understand that truth, you will always approach relationships from a place of lack instead of abundance. The world has convinced many people that their value increases only when they are attached to someone else. That if you're not in a relationship, something is wrong with you. That if you're not taken, you're somehow incomplete. Let me tell you plainly, your value does not come from who chooses you. It comes from the one who created you. You were whole before anyone entered your life, and you will still be whole if they walk away. When you see partnership as a necessity, you become desperate. You start accepting things you would never tolerate if you truly believed you were enough. You bend your boundaries, compromise your values, settle for almost right just so you won't be alone. But when you understand that partnership is a choice, you stop entering relationships to fill a void and start entering them to share an overflow. Here's the truth. You can be single and fulfilled, married and fulfilled, divorced and fulfilled, widow and fulfilled. Your fulfillment is not tied to your relationship status. It's tied to your identity in God. Partnership is an addition to your life, not the foundation of it. Too many people enter relationships thinking, I need someone to complete me. That is dangerous thinking. If you are half a person looking for someone else to make you whole, you will place a weight on them they were never designed to carry. You will expect them to heal wounds they didn't cause, fix insecurities they didn't create, supply joy they can't sustain. That is not partnership. That is dependency. When you understand that partnership is a choice, you can choose with clarity. You can ask, does this person align with my values? Do they respect my boundaries? Do they inspire my growth? Do they honor my faith? Do they bring peace or chaos? Because you are no longer driven by fear of being alone. You are free to be selective. You can walk away from red flags without hesitation because you know your worth doesn't diminish with your singleness. The healthiest partnerships are formed when two whole people choose to walk together, when two broken people cling to each other, hoping the other will make them feel whole. Wholeness before partnership is key. Because when you are whole, you do not use the other person as an emotional crutch. You do not make them your identity. You do not lose yourself in them. Instead, you bring your full self into the relationship and expect them to do the same. Partnership is not supposed to be a rescue mission. It's not supposed to be, I can't live without you. It's supposed to be, I can live without you. I choose to live with you because our lives are better together. That's the beauty of seeing it as a choice. It means the relationship is not built on survival, but on mutual decision and mutual benefit. When you think partnership is necessary for happiness, you will tolerate treatment that robs you of peace just so you can say you have someone. You will call dysfunction love and chaos passion because you've convinced yourself that anything is better than being alone. When you understand it is a choice, you will protect your peace over your relationship status. Sometimes God will allow a season of singleness to teach you that He is enough, that your identity is secure without anyone else's validation. Your joy doesn't come from romantic love, but from divine love. And if you don't learn that lesson, you will carry unhealthy expectations into every partnership you enter. Seeing partnership as a choice also means you know how to walk away. You are not trapped by fear of starting over. You are not bound by the opinions of people who think you should stay. You are not paralyzed by the thought of life without them. You understand that endings are not always failures. Sometimes they are redirections toward better. You also learn to celebrate others without comparison. When you see your friends getting married, engaged, or entering relationships, you can rejoice with them genuinely because you know their joy does not diminish your future. You can cheer them on without feeling left behind because you are secure in the timing and plan God has for your life. Partnership is a blessing when it is chosen from a place of strength. When you are not looking for someone to fix you, you can actually enjoy the relationship without constant fear of losing it. You can communicate instead of manipulate. You can set healthy boundaries without worrying that they will leave. You can give without draining yourself dry. And here's the truth, the wrong partnership can be lonelier than singleness. Being with someone who doesn't understand you, respect you, or value you will make you feel more isolated than being by yourself. Partnership without alignment is not partnership, it's just proximity. When you choose partnership, you are choosing to link your life with someone's character, habits, values, and faith. That choice should never be made lightly or quickly. You are not picking a dinner date. You are choosing who will walk with you through storms, victories, losses, and seasons of change. That's why it must be a choice made with discernment, not desperation. Some people will not understand why you are so intentional about this. They will tell you your standards are too high, that you're being too picky, that you should lower your expectations. But they are not the ones who have to live with the consequences of your choice. They are not the ones who will share your home, your dreams, and your challenges. You are. And because you know partnership is a choice, you refuse to gamble with your peace just to satisfy other people's timelines. You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be selective. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself over an unhealthy partnership. And you are allowed to be whole right here, right now, without waiting for someone to come and complete you. Because here's the reality, you were complete the moment God breathed life into you. A partner can complement you, but they cannot complete you. Job was already finished by your Creator. So let partnership be what it was meant to be. A mutual decision between two whole, secure, purpose-driven people who want to walk together. Not because they have to, not because they're afraid to be alone, because they see in each other a reflection of God's love, character, and calling. Partnership is a choice. And when you choose from a place of wholeness, that choice becomes a gift, not a necessity for survival, but a beautiful addition to an already complete life.